Welcome to Xi Jinping briefing. The content of the briefing includes: New Zealand set to maintain China ties but Aukus issue could complicate. US, China pitch rival supply chain visions in latest economic clash. San Francisco's cleanup should spur new city solutions. Biden to skip UN climate summit, drawing grumbles from environmentalists. Video of Biden altered so speech appears unnaturally slow, fact check. New Zealand set to maintain China ties but Aukus issue could complicate. South China Morning Post. The swearing-in of New Zealand's new coalition government is expected to maintain the country's standout diplomacy with Beijing, despite the presence of China hawks and hard-right politicians. Under the leadership of new Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, New Zealand's foreign policy is likely to remain balanced, according to analysts. With Luxon focused on fixing the country's economy, maintaining solid trading relations with China will be a priority. However, the possibility of New Zealand joining the Aukus alliance could resurface, as both Luxon's National Party and the ACT Party are supportive of the move. US, China pitch rival supply chain visions in latest economic clash. South China Morning Post. The US and China are presenting contrasting visions of resilient supply chains. President Joe Biden has announced measures to strengthen supply chains critical to America's economic and national security, including increased domestic production of essential medicines and reduced reliance on high-risk foreign supplies. The White House has also sought allies to mitigate China's dominance in key sectors. Meanwhile, China is hosting an international expo on supply chains, marketing it as a testimony to China's readiness to open up. The two countries are engaged in fierce competition to assert a global trading system around their respective economic needs. San Francisco's cleanup should spur new city solutions. Financial Times. San Francisco's efforts to clean up its streets for a recent summit were short-lived, as the city continues to struggle with cleanliness issues. The city has a high number of reports of human feces on its streets, with nearly half of the busiest streets still affected. The major causes of the problem are a large homeless population and a lack of public bathrooms. San Francisco has been trying to tackle homelessness for decades, but the lack of bathrooms is a practical issue that is difficult to solve due to the costs of maintenance and legal restrictions on charging entrance fees. Biden to skip UN climate summit, drawing grumbles from environmentalists. Wall Street Journal. U.S. President Joe Biden will not attend the United Nations Climate Summit in Dubai this week, according to the White House. While no official reason was given for Biden's expected absence, it comes amid his administration's focus on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Climate advocates have criticized the president's absence, with some arguing that his administration has not done enough to address climate policies. Biden has attended the summit in previous years, using the event to promote his climate agenda. Video of Biden altered so speech appears unnaturally slow, fact check. Yahoo! An Instagram video that appears to show President Joe Biden speaking very slowly at a press conference has been altered, according to fact-checkers at USA Today. The video has been slowed down to make it appear as though Biden is speaking at a slower pace. The video shows a clip from a speech Biden gave on November 15, in which he references discussions with Chinese President Xi Jinping about reducing the illegal import of fentanyl from China to the U.S. The original C-SPAN and CNN footage of the press conference show Biden speaking at a more natural pace. Biden's right to skip the COP28 climate summit. Telegraph. U.S. President Joe Biden will not attend the UN climate change conference in Dubai this week, according to U.S. officials. Biden's absence is notable as he had made attending the summit a priority in previous years. The article highlights the frustration that both climate activists and free marketeers feel towards global climate conferences. It also discusses the centralized reconfiguration of the global economy that is at the heart of climate deliberations and the financial incentives that lobbyists see in climate policy. The article notes that developing countries are now responsible for the majority of global carbon emissions, with China being the largest emitter. Joe Biden will not attend COP28. Telegraph. U.S. President Joe Biden will not attend the COP28 climate talks in Dubai, citing the war in the Middle East and domestic political pressures. Dozens of world leaders, including UK Chancellor Rishi Sunak, the Pope, and the King are expected to attend. The decision could risk a backlash from younger voters who prioritize climate change, but Biden may be banking on their continued support over Donald Trump, who withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Agreement. The climate summit will involve negotiations between 198 governments on agreements to limit global temperatures and address funding for developing countries affected by climate change. How much FDI is China actually attracting? Financial Times. Foreign direct investment, FDI, in China has collapsed, with the preliminary balance of payments data from China's State Administration of Foreign Exchange indicating that inward FDI fell into negative territory for the first time since the series began in 1998. However, there is a discrepancy in the data, with China's Ministry of Commerce putting the decline at a more moderate 33% decline to $128 billion in the first 3 quarters of the year. Foreign investors are now pulling money out of Chinese investments at a rapid pace, with outflows exceeding $100 billion in the first 3 quarters of 2023. Are we headed for a new dynasty of US-China relations after Xi-Biden meeting? South China Morning Post. The recent meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) summit in San Francisco marked a pause in deteriorating bilateral relations. The meeting resulted in several agreements, including a pledge to cooperate on fentanyl, discussions on the risks of artificial intelligence, and the resumption of military communication. However, the business community remains skeptical and concerned about China's investigations of U.S. companies operating in the country. The meeting was criticized by some U.S. government officials and activists who were critical of engagement with China. The Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board also announced that it would exclude investments in Hong Kong from its international fund. China's path to power runs through the world cities. Foreign Affairs. China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, is not just an infrastructure project, but a sweeping urbanization project that has the potential to redefine the future of cities around the world. The BRI aims to connect more than 150 countries through new roads, railways, seaports, energy systems, and technological innovations, bringing 2/3 of the world's population closer to Chinese markets and influence. The development of cities has historically been closely tied to the international order, and the BRI represents China's attempt to shape that order through the construction of material conduits that carry Chinese influence and developmental models. China's urbanization efforts began in the late 1970s and have been a central part of its economic and strategic vision. The BRI builds on this by focusing on the development of urban corridors and port cities that will be connected to China's existing major seaports. These cities will not only become hubs for trade and commerce but also test beds for sustainable urban development and digital connectivity. However, they may also be characterized by increased surveillance and control, as China exports its technologies of social control to other cities around the world. The success of the BRI could lead to a new kind of city and a new international order, one that is shaped by Chinese values and interests. The United States and other Western countries are already trying to counter the BRI with alternative forms of infrastructural geopolitics, such as the Build Back Better World initiative. However, these efforts may be hampered by the challenges of coordinating large-scale and long-term projects. It is crucial for Western countries to develop a long-term strategic vision that incorporates their values and mobilizes the necessary resources to compete with the BRI. The future of cities and the international order are at stake. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your friendly neighborhood 6 Doctor here, bringing you the latest news from the 6-dimensional world. Let's dive right in, shall we? First up, we have New Zealand. Despite the presence of China hawks and hard-right politicians, the country's new coalition government is expected to maintain its strong ties with Beijing. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon is focused on fixing the economy and maintaining solid trading relations with China. However, the possibility of New Zealand joining the Aukus alliance could complicate things. So, it's a delicate balancing act for Luxon. Moving on to the US and China, they're locked in a fierce competition over supply chains. President Joe Biden is taking measures to strengthen America's supply chains, while China is hosting an international expo on supply chains to showcase its readiness to open up. It's like a showdown between 2 heavyweight champions, each vying for dominance in the global trading system. Let the battle begin. Next, we have San Francisco, which is struggling with cleanliness issues. The city's efforts to clean up its streets for a recent summit were short-lived, with human feces still a common sight. The problem stems from a large homeless population and a lack of public bathrooms. It's a practical issue that's not easy to solve, but hey, at least they're trying, right? In climate news, President Biden is skipping the United Nations Climate Summit in Dubai this week, much to the dismay of environmentalists. Some argue that his administration hasn't done enough to address climate policies, so his absence is seen as a missed opportunity. But hey, he's got other things on his plate, like the Israel-Hamas conflict. Priorities, people. Now, let's talk about a video that's been making the rounds on social media. It appears to show President Biden speaking very slowly at a press conference. But guess what? It's been altered. Fact-checkers have confirmed that the video was slowed down to make Biden appear as though he's speaking at a snail's pace. Ah, the wonders of technology. You can't trust everything you see on the internet, folks. Speaking of Biden, he's also skipping the COP28 climate summit. This decision could risk a backlash from younger voters who prioritize climate change. But hey, Biden may be banking on their continued support over his predecessor, who famously withdrew the US from the Paris Agreement. It's a political tightrope walk, and Biden is trying to keep his balance. In economic news, foreign direct investment in China has collapsed. The data shows that inward FDI fell into negative territory for the first time since records began. Foreign investors are pulling their money out of Chinese investments at a rapid pace. Ouch! That's gotta hurt. It's a sign of the times, my friends. The tides are shifting, and China is feeling the effects. And finally, we have the meeting between Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping at the APEC summit. While it marked a pause in deteriorating bilateral relations, there are still concerns about China's investigations of U.S. companies operating in the country. The business community is skeptical, but hey, at least they're talking, right? Communication is key, people. Now, my dear viewers, it's time to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you agree with Luxon's approach to China? Should Biden have attended the climate summit? And what about that altered video of Biden? Let's keep the conversation going and see what kind of six-dimensional wisdom we can uncover together. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.